in a seated position, just a moment of seated nothing, just being here. Follow your breath. Notice the space between the breath. Notice the length of each breath. We're going to move into an arm balance next. So the prep is to practice chaturanga. So right here, I'm going to lean into my chaturanga arms and shoot my feet back. So I would say revisit that for a few moments, or you could move on to the next option I'm going to give you. So I'm going to work through a series of progressions of Mayurasana Peacock pose. So that was just one. You can sit in easy seated and shoot back chaturanga. The next is to start to work the hand placement. So you've got to flip your fingers back and walk them in between your legs, pinkies together, elbows in your stomach. Feet go back into an elbow plank. Mayurasana, lift your feet, lower them down. Lift your feet, lower them down. That is very, very challenging. So here are the blocks that I was talking about we could use for this posture. So I'm going to take my shoulders to the blocks. I'm going to take my hands in between my legs with the fingers pointing back. Now that might be tough for your wrists, so you might have to take fingers pointing out away from each other, wrist to wrist. Then lift your feet up and step them back or shoot them back. And then play with here, lifting your shoulders off the floor, or lifting one foot off shoulders off the blocks, or 1 foot off the floor. And you can think of it as a teeter-totter back and forth. So you can hold one leg, lower it, and hold the other leg. Make sure your elbows are squeezing in together towards your belly button. All right, so that's another option that you can play with. Knees come down, and then you can sit back and stretch your wrists actually. So this is another little thing to play with. If you think wrist mobility is what's holding you up here with the wrist stretch, you can have your fingers pointing back. Okay, I'm going to set up now with the blocks at the back of my mat. Hands come in between my legs, fingers pointing back, pinkies together, wrist pointing forward, elbows squeeze into my belly, and then my feet come back and walk over and around to the blocks so that one can come up on the block and then the other on the block. And then I'm using my toes on the blocks to push my chest forward, open my heart, and here's Mayurasana. And you're going to feel your glutes working. Okay, coming out of that's not always so easy, so be careful. I was really in a rush to get out of that. All right, so now here's one other little option you can play with. Feet in bound angle will help. And when your feet are in bound angle or lotus, this pose is 10 times easier because you don't have the extra weight pulling you back and down. So as soon as I straighten my legs back, I go down. All right, so play with that. And then when you're finished child's pose, you can rewind and revisit any of those options at any point in time or skip it. These are your practices. So make wise decisions.